Welcome to Picture the Professor, the sports betting show brought to you by a real statistics professor and his actual cousin Jared. We are into week 7 of the college football season, coming off of a week 6 where the picks we had on the show, slightly profitable. The A grades had a good week. And so remember, if you want to get all those A grades, you can obviously get those on Patreon. The link's in the show description. Cousin Jared, overall, still kind of treading water for the most part. Haven't really had that big week we've expected. We talked about this on previous shows that in the last couple of years, we've done really well. The subset of A grades that you and I have selected have done better than the A grades overall. We haven't quite seen that this year. I don't know if you have any thoughts. We're less than half a season in compared to 2 years of data, but something worth discussing. The model seems to be doing strong. We seem to be doing okay. I'm optimistic going forward, but it's been just kind of, another just ho-hum week, I feel like.
Yeah, I would agree with that part of it for sure. I certainly, and I mean, people mentioned it in the comments on YouTube last week, how we had a very similar conversation at the beginning of the week, and people were like, "You're being too hard on yourselves." I think there's lots of sports bettors out there that would love to make the number of plays that we do, 450 plays a season or whatever it might be, and just barely be treading water on, breaking even. There's a lot of sports bettors that would love that. So I don't want to minimize that at all, but we're less than halfway through the season. And I know if I went and, handpicked things, I could probably come up with more than a few plays that we should have lost that we ended up winning. But I can definitely, off the top of my head, how many covers or totals have we lost in the last minute? Just in the past few weeks, there have been a handful of games that have flipped the other way. And if we were up, 5 or 6 units at this point in the season, I think I would say, hey, we're not doing as well as we have been, but still up, still doing well. Feel like we have good handle on things. So I'm not overreacting. It's been a weird season, and not only from a betting perspective, but just from a college football life perspective. It's been a weird season. So that may be part of it, but I'm not too concerned. I just feel like we have had a few bad breaks, and the fact that we can have bad breaks and be break even and not down, I think is still pretty impressive.
And of course, you can see on screen all the units we've made in years past. We seem to have this discussion every year where we hit a little stub our toe stretch, and I don't even feel like we're stubbing our toe. I feel like we're just not quite there. It's not like it's been disastrous, but you're right, we are too hard on ourselves. I would absolutely agree with that statement. That's part of its personality, because Jared, I think you and I may be that way in every aspect of our lives, unfortunately, but we do have high standards.
No, mine's basically
here.
Just college football.
Just college football. Okay, maybe that's just that's just a personal problem, apparently, that I struggle with as a perfectionist. Cousin Jared, recapping week 6, the good, the bad, the ugly. What was good for you?
What was good for me is, so my father-in-law and I went to the A&M game on Saturday night. And so, all the tailgaters and everything, there's no good cell service. I have no idea what's going on in general, especially because all of the tailgates at the A&M game either had on Alabama, Vanderbilt, or Florida, Texas. Those were the only 2 games that anybody was watching out in the tailgates. And so, I'm walking in and finally get service, get on the Wi-Fi there at the stadium and see that Penn State just lost to UCLA. And my father-in-law makes the comment that all of the new rules in college football, he specifically talked about the transfer portal, but NIL, whatever it might be, all of the changes that have happened in college football over the past few years have made games like that, where you have the offensive coordinator being carried off the field on the shoulders of the players after a monumental upset, have made those types of moments, in my mind, more likely. That's something that never would have happened in past years, and very unlikely to have happened in past years anyway. And so I just left saying, you know what, I agree with my father-in-law. It's a really good thing for college football that kind of the player movement and everything else, while it has lost like the conferences. Like, obviously I'm still not down with the way conferences are. Yeah, that's not a good thing. But I like a lot of the other things that have gone on in college football, and they have enabled, in my mind, games like, UCLA and Penn State. So, more times that happens, I'm excited about it.
I was going to say good on the model. I've built this model, and I'm I guess I'm proud of it. I haven't really thought about that too much, but I'm proud of what I've built. And one of the things that it has been saying all season is that Penn State isn't that good. It's had them when everybody else had them top 5, it had them more around 10. Penn State didn't actually take that big of a hit in sideline because this week, because the model already had them pretty far down. It dinged them a little more, sure, but it was already not high on Penn State. So I'm going to say good
Right.
on the model. Not that we faded Penn State. It wasn't saying that there was value on UCLA, but we've been down on Penn State, and the model is very vindicating. The other one I was going to say about that is Iowa State. Is the other team that the model was very vindicated on.
Uh-huh.
We talked about it last week on show and the unfailing of a new segment. We don't have one of those this week, but we will bring it back. Are you sure about that? Where it was like Cincinnati's favorite. Are you sure about that? And watching the game, it was like, I feel like the model's been telling us all season that Iowa State isn't that good. Model's not right on everything. It's not perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect model. We say all the time, all models are wrong. Some models are useful. And so it's hard to know that I'm aiming for perfection and I will never make it, but I am proud of a model that has shown to be useful in things it was telling us, for instance, about Iowa State. Just not being quite as good as they were last year. Penn State's another one. There are a few other teams that were, eyeing that the model's just kind of, taking a stance on and eventually being proven right on. And that's always good.
Yep.
Because Jared,
Yep.
what was bad for you in week 6?
UCLA and Penn State. Penn State, that was poor effort. And for me in general, and I have lots of thoughts on this and not sure I'm going to be able to articulate it very well, but across all of college football, fans were so spoiled by Nick Saban and to maybe a lesser extent Kirby Smart, and maybe even to a lesser extent now, especially because of what happened, Dabo Swinney at Clemson, where the expectation is that you both win the big games and simultaneously never lose the games that you should lose. That was like the hallmark of Nick Saban. His teams literally never lost a game where they were favored for the most part. Obviously, some of those Georgia games, they were close spreads, but that first season they lost to Louisiana Monroe. And after that, they went however many times where, they didn't lose to an opponent that wasn't ranked in the top 15 or whatever it was. That is that's not how college football works. Not just in today's college football, but like through the course of history of college football. Yeah, that's not really how it works. And James Franklin now is getting a lot of heat because an adequate knock on James Franklin. He has not been able to win the big games for sure. Like you can definitely say that.
He never lost the games he shouldn't, literally ever.
Yes, literally
he was so
ever.
Consistent.
Yes. And now Penn State fans are upset. Well, it's like, he lost one game he shouldn't. Okay, well, fine. You want to get a coach that's going to win the big games, but maybe lose some of the games he shouldn't? Ask the Alabama fans how that goes. And I am not saying that they wouldn't rather have Kalen DeBoer. I'm not saying that Alabama's not going to end up in a better place. But again, ask the Alabama fans. That's pretty dang painful too, losing those games that you shouldn't lose, but still winning the big ones. I really don't know which one's worse.
That was their whole season last year where they had some big wins, like that Georgia win, and they argued they were good enough to be one of the top teams to make the playoff. It's like they were one of the best 12 teams in the country. The issue is when you lose all those games that you shouldn't like that, we have to reward you for what happened on the field and penalize you for what happened on the field. So you're right, very painful for an Alabama fan to be like, I know my team is a top 10 caliber team, and yet here we are on the outside looking in.
Yes. And so I just have to say, I just think it's bad for college football that we're at that place where James Franklin's basically in a no-win situation at this point. It doesn't matter what he does. And it's, in my mind, through no fault of what he's done. Yes, you wish that he would have won some of the big games, but I just don't know that he could have done much better in any situation. And there are trade-offs to everything. Literally nobody is perfect. Besides Nick Saban through that certain period, there's been, even the Miami and USC teams from the early 2000s that people look back so fondly on, each of those teams only went undefeated one time. It's not something that happened.
Some of those Mac Brown Texas teams people talk about, right? With this rose-colored glasses, and it's like Mac Brown was on the hot seat because they constantly were only winning 9 or 10 games with stud players, and then it took Vince Young and Colt McCoy, and even then it was still only 2 seasons or 3 seasons. It wasn't like it was 8 years in a row. It was 2 or 3 really good seasons. Yes. And there were a lot of other frustrating seasons in there that you can't just ignore those as well.
Yeah, and so just in general, I just think it's bad for college football that we've lost, which is completely expected. But like, there's just no nuance. It's like you either win the national championship or it's not worth it. And I just, that bothers me with where we're at.
And we saw that with Ryan Day last year. I mean, they were ready to fire him, and then he went to the national championship.
Yeah.
Because, Jared, I haven't run this by you yet. I have not prepped you for this segment for what I'm going to say. I'm going to say bad, because Jared, bad on you. Bad on you.
Oh, no.
Maryland, Wisconsin. I sit here and I say, Cousin Jared, should we take the money line? And you're like, no, don't take the money line. And I'm like, really? Like, this is your hallmark? You love the plus odds.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here going like, Cousin Jared, what is, whatever, your gut and whatever. And Maryland takes a 20-0 lead, I believe, cruises to a victory. Bad on you, Cousin Jared, for not giving us the Maryland money line winner, because that's how that game played out.
I mean, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, is what I've been told throughout my life. And that was definitely one that probably more on the luck side than the skill side.
For those of you who don't know, Maryland blew their 20-0 lead and lost the game. They did cover. They got the cover for us.
They did cover.
But
yes, they did cover.
One of the more shocking results of the weekend with regards to just watching it play out, it'd be like, how did that where Maryland didn't get the win? I guess you said lucky for us. You made the comment. You said just take the points. People don't get too greedy, and sure enough, I guess that worked out. Because of Jared the Ugly, I'm actually going to kick this off because it's going to be a continuation of my previous segment. We had Vanderbilt and the points, and ugly football game. Really, Jadon Pavia, one of his worst games of his career. Has now dropped from number 1 in sideline quarterback ratings to number 3 from that game. And he did not play well at all, but it doesn't matter because good teams win, great teams cover, and Vanderbilt got us to cover with that one. And then similarly, what was the night?
TCU, Colorado.
TCU, Colorado, Colorado, same thing. Great job by Colorado to get us to cover there. Both of those games, no worries, easy cover. TCU and Alabama never had a chance to cover those games, was never outside the number. Cousin Jared, that's how both of those games ended, if I'm correct on that, right?
Well, so by that point, I was just jaded after the Vandy non-cover. So I'm actually kind of glad that they both happened on the same day, because splitting those up over 2 weeks would have been especially painful. At least, by the time that the Colorado one happened, it was like, well, I was kind of already conditioned for this today. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Covers that we had in the bag. I'm almost certain that neither one of those teams' favor was outside the number until the final play of the game, basically.
Yep.
And in both of them, I believe both of them were like fourth down conversions where if they fall down after converting the fourth down, we cover, and then I guess TCU's might have been a pass. So it was a pass, but why are you throwing a pass to the end zone on like 4th and 7?
I don't understand. You were on like the 25-yard line.
Yeah,
it didn't make sense.
Yeah, both of those, two of the hardest, not back doors, because we had the dogs, we had the right call, and both of them turning into losses. And you mentioned at the top of the show, stuff like that's just been. I'm just glad that we had Maryland in the point, so it wasn't 3 of them.
Yes.
Because had we had Maryland in the money line, and it would have been 3 losses like that, that would have been. We might not even have a show this week. I might just be crying.
Yes,
folks. This is not Dr. Pepper. It is also not vodka. But after a couple of those losses Saturday, it feels like it could be, and that wouldn't be the crazy side. Jared, what was ugly for you this weekend?
I'm going to go with Penn State and UCLA.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yes, exactly. I just don't know. And, you could have gotten this from my last comments on what was bad, but I don't know what Penn State and James Franklin do at this point. It is a gross overreaction to say, well, he can't win the big game. Now he can't win the little games either. It's one game. You are really making a too far of a leap on that. But at the same time, if you want to indict the man for being 1-16 against, top 10 ranked teams, I also can't blame you for that. The buyout's too big for Penn State to fire him, but I think it's becoming more and more obvious that they're ready to move on. And I'm not sure if James Franklin's ready to move on, but he seems like a good guy. If he got offered another good job, somebody would love to have James Franklin. I have no idea. Baylor. Baylor would love to have James
love it.
Franklin.
Would love that.
Yes, exactly.
Please.
And in Florida, I don't know if Florida fans would be happy. They probably
Somehow
wouldn't
now
be
we're
happy
coming
with James
back
Franklin.
and we have to talk about my dumb school and our dumb defensive guru head coach who's got the worst defense in the world. I thought we were going to go a week without talking about it, Cousin Jared.
Like Jack Sparrow says, when you're the worst pirate I've ever heard of, and Jack Sparrow's like, but you have heard of me.
You have heard of me, yeah.
Well, and so that's also about Baylor. They won, so I mean, for whatever that's worth.
They won,
but anyway,
and we won taking the points. So
yeah. So I just don't know where James Franklin and Penn State go. He's too expensive to fire, but I don't think everything's not happy and rosy. I think other teams want him, but like if he's trying to win, I don't think there's a better place than Penn State. I don't know. I think it's not going to be a good situation, through the end of the season.
My hunch is he'll continue to win the games he should win. It was a one-off. My hunch is he's going to continue to struggle against the better teams. I'm not sure that Aller is the right fit for that offense. I think that offense can be better. I know I've seen some speculation that maybe Pribula would have been a better fit. So that's unfortunate. Yeah. Aller's another guy who's dropped a lot in sideline quarterback ratings. I mean, just like every other model out there in the world and predictive service out there in the world, we had Arch Manning in the top 10, Drew Aller in the top 10. Manning's down to like number 30 and continuing to fall. And if he doesn't get it together, he's just going to continue to fall. At some point, he hasn't played like the 30th best quarterback this year, but we don't want to completely, ignore last year and the star rating and all that other stuff. Some of that is slightly predictive, so we haven't gotten rid of that. But I mean, he's dropping like a rock. Aller's down to like 16, I think, and struggling. So a few quarterbacks obviously that we thought would be better struggling, but that's one of the bigger things with Penn State. That's the frustrating because I think everyone saw Aller's potential, and he may end up being a guy who does better in the pros than in college if it is a system thing. I'm not really sure, but yeah, it's going to be. Tough for Penn State, and while we're here, we'll mention as well with Texas that where do they go from here with regards to on the outside looking in for the playoff for sure. On the outside looking in for a bowl game if things go bad for Texas. I mean, their schedule is brutal, so a lot there. We'll discuss Texas more later, of course, with their big game this weekend. But folks, just as a reminder here, all those A grade plays again, just blindly backing them positive for the season. Kind of a hallmark of something that we've done here for years now in all sports at Picks of the Professor. You can get all that over on Patreon. We have unlocked the free trial feature now on Patreon. So if you go there, you can get a free trial 1 week. You can get access to every A-grade play, all of our Discord chat, detailed breakdowns, a lot of great information, all the rankings for all the offense, all the position groups, more information and fun stuff than you can imagine, folks. So check that out. Remember, it's a player-based model, which really matters. Cousin Jared, we had a couple of quarterback changes. The one that mattered the most this week that we caught was Air Force quarterback. The backup there now playing. Turning out to boost them a little bit, right? And so that's, again, the benefit of a player-based model.
That Air Force quarterback, one of only 3 guys in the past decade to have 3 straight games of 200 yards passing and 100 yards rushing. And one of the guys was Lamar Jackson. And the other one is, I can't remember, but somebody who's in the NFL. It's probably like Kyler Murray or Baker Mayfield, one of the Oklahoma quarterbacks, I think. So anyway, yeah, that was a pretty good company. He's been playing really well. Unfortunately for Air Force, no defense to speak of, but they do have a quarterback that's playing well.
Yeah. And again, we always talk about one game is random model wins in the long run. We have no idea what will happen in one game. We have no idea when we're going to get front door covered, even if, Cousin Jared, you kind of predicted it against in the Alabama game. We get bad on you for bringing that on us. Remember, it's all about the price and the value. We'll talk about that as we go forward. Again, quick slide here, just as your last second reminders here. If you're interested in figuring out how real better is profit long term, how do we protect and grow our bankroll? Folks, we've been talking about it here. We are hard on ourselves, but even though we're continuing our bankroll around where it was, and it's not growing like we hope. But again, we're not tanking it every single week. And so little things like that, how do you do a little bit better with your money? That's what we help you do here at Picks of the Professors. You can check that out. Again, link in the show description over on Patreon. And that'll take us to our games of the week. We have 3 of them this week. We're going to start off at noon. Alabama just featured in this segment, Games of the Week, it seems like every week. An insanely tough schedule so far, and it doesn't get any easier. Having to travel to a very good Missouri team. Sideline has ranked number 10. Cousin Jared, we've got this at pretty much a coin toss. Alabama slightly more likely to win than lose by literally 0.5%, 1%. We're going to take Missouri plus 130, barely ekes into an A grade. The A grade threshold for this, according to Sideline, is plus 130 in those A grade thresholds for every single game. available for all of our honorable members over on Patreon. Just sneaks into that A grade territory. Because, Jared, I'm not sure what to make of this Alabama team. They looked better on the road against Georgia than they did at home against Vanderbilt. I think with regards to expectations, with regards to the spread, again, how the Alabama game should have finished up. The fact that if you told me that at home, Diego Pavia had a game that bad, his star receiver, tight end, whichever one it was, had such a bad game as well, I would have said Alabama should have destroyed, and they couldn't. So there was this narrative last year about the home road, because, Jared, you had speculated maybe it was less about that, more about playing to the level of competition. Either way, this Alabama team, very good, not great. And I think that's kind of been the
Right.
theme for them with Kalen DeBoer. That's our sideline has them here. Number 6, very good, not great. Missouri in a similar boat. It's not easy to go into Missouri and play. It's a fairly tough place to play.
No.
It's not the biggest stadium in the world, but those fans are pretty rowdy, even for an 11 a.m. local kick. Cousin Jared, can the Tigers pull the upset here and make us look really smart here at plus odds?
The way that I like the thought. I mean, I'm telling you, there is, unless they were playing on a weeknight, which they don't really do in college football with all the scheduling. Alabama playing 11 a.m. kickoff at Missouri, coming off of the game against Georgia, and then a revenge game that has College Game Day 2:30 on ABC. There is not a worse situation, I think, for Alabama to walk into here than this one, because this Missouri team is good. And you talked about, you mentioned Bo Pribula earlier, who was the backup at Penn State last year, transferred prior to the bowl games to go to Missouri, where he was going to be the starter this year. Pribula is really good. They had, and I should know his name, but the running back for Missouri, at least as of, I don't know if it as of now, I think Missouri may have been off last week, but leading the country in rushing, really good running back that they have there. This Missouri offense, as you can see with sideline here, ranked number 8, really solid offense here. The reason that I like the money line as opposed to taking the points is you could take 3 points with Missouri, and I would not fault you for taking 3 points. But for me, it's more of this Alabama offense and Ty Simpson. He's been really efficient, really effective as of late. If they go in and play their A game, I think it's more likely that Alabama wins this game by 7 than it is, have a really close game like 3. But if Alabama does what they have been want to do these past couple of years under Kalen DeBoer, going on the road to Missouri's a good team, but not a named team, not a Georgia, not a rivalry game like Auburn, very similar to them going on the road to Oklahoma, I would say, last year. I think if Missouri is close in this game, I think Missouri has a good chance to win. So I'm not sure that the 3 points is really that valuable. So for me, I really like the spot here for Missouri catching Alabama off back-to-back big games.
Ahmad Hardy is the running back from Missouri.
Ahmad
and again,
Hardy. Yeah, there you go.
Just to dive a little bit into sideline, and these are things that we discuss on Discord from time to time. So folks, if you have questions about this stuff, I'm happy to go ahead and pull what the model says about all these players. It's a 134 grade. 100 is average for both teams and players. Higher is better for offenses. Lower is better for defense. Is standard deviation of 15. So he's more than 2 standard deviations better than average for college football. Just a comparison for you. Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, pretty good running back, 137. Mark Fletcher from Miami, pretty good running back, 131. He slots right between both of those guys. So very good running back for Missouri.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I just wanted to comment on, this tough schedule for Alabama at some point catches up to you, because you're just constantly playing good teams. You don't have the opportunity to take your starters out late. You don't have the opportunity to try things, to work on things, to get your depth guys. It does build up, and they desperately need to play what used to be Vanderbilt, right? And of course, Vanderbilt's not that anymore, but they need that sort of game. They need that November game that I'm sure they're going to get against, Tennessee, Chattanooga, or whoever, right?
Yeah.
That comes. They need a bye week. They need something like that. And I'm not saying necessarily that means Alabama loses, but it's just a tough spot for them to go on the road after, like you said, these back-to-back weeks after the Florida State game, like to start the season off. It's just a grind of a schedule. I just have to say again, Missouri wins. It definitely does indicate what the model's telling us. It's Missouri or pass. And if you want to pass, that's fine. There's nothing wrong ever with passing. There's nothing wrong with taking the 3. Because my thought is Missouri plays these home games like this, and it seems like every one of them comes down to a field goal. I'm pretty sure that's some sort of memory bias that's not accurate, but it feels that way. But a lot of times
Does.
Missouri's the one kicking that field goal to win it. They've usually got a pretty good field goal kicker. So if my memory is correct and it plays out the same way, then maybe Missouri wins by 3. And this one, it could eke out the victory for us at home. That is your noon game of the week. 2 incredible games at 3:30 Eastern. One of them for better reasons than the other. We're going to start off with the better one, Indiana at Oregon. Segment is Indiana at number 3, just absolutely loves Oregon at number 5. The difference between these two teams, as you can see there with their grades, 129, 128. Very little. Don't stress about, the model thinks Indiana is better than Oregon. It's rounding error. It's literally, it's not, I don't simulate, so it's not simulation error, but it's not like there's the model's really saying one's better than the other. They are statistically equivalent, more or less, according to the model. Number 1 and number 2 offenses in the country, so expecting some fireworks there, but the defenses are no slouch. Because Indiana's on the road, it's a tough travel spot. Of course, Eugene, a very difficult place to play. The model knows that is giving Oregon a good amount of home field edge for that. But we've got Oregon winning this by about a field goal. I'm really surprised this is 7.5. I really thought, I know Oregon's getting a lot of respect. Indiana hasn't. We backed Indiana a ton last year, made a lot of money off of them. We even had Oregon against Penn State already, so we've made money backing Oregon this year. I'm really surprised this isn't in that no man's land between 4 and 6, where I would say they're giving you the Oregon tax, they're giving you the Indiana tax, but it's not enough value to really warrant playing Indiana. I figured at 6.5, I'd be like, we're going to have to play Indiana. At 7, yeah, you got to play 7.5. I'm just shocked. A-grade play from us. Again, Oregon is really, really good. But this Indiana team, they haven't done it yet. They didn't do it last year. They weren't able to play the big boys and hang in there. I wonder if the way that they beat Illinois, though, is an indication this year that maybe they're a little bit better than last year. Last year, they were beating the teams like Illinois, or excuse me, they were winning those games like they beat Illinois this year. They were doing that against the really weak teams. But doing that against a team of the caliber of Illinois, I think they've taken a step up. And even last year, as much as we loved them, we still were saying they weren't anywhere near as good as the Ohio States and the Penn States. And that played out to be true. This year, the model thinks they actually are as good as those teams, although no one's as good as Ohio State. As good as everybody but Ohio State, who's literally running away.
Right.
Inside with number 1 in a class of their own. Jared, what's your thought on this one?
So one of the guys at The Athletic, this is going to be the most useless thing I've ever done on this show was the Hallmark Christmas movie rankings, but this is going to be the second most useless thing that I've ever brought up on the show. But somebody over at The Athletic did a mock NFL draft, just for funsies, like the first one of the season. And guess who the first quarterback he had taken was?
It shouldn't be either quarterback in this game. I know that
it was Mendoza from Indiana.
Wow.
Was the first quarterback that he had going in the draft. My thing is, when you look at how Drew Aller played in the game against Oregon, did not play extremely well. Some people who were commenting on the game said it almost looked like Franklin and Kolonicki didn't trust Aller, to run the type of offense that you need to run to beat a team like Oregon. That is absolutely not anything that you've been able to say about a Kurt Cignetti quarterback during his time at Indiana. Whether it was our boy Rourke last year or Mendoza this year, they have just looked on point at almost every data point that you would want to collect. They have hit what you would want them to hit. And so for me, this is just simply 7.5 is too much. Don't honestly, maybe this should be 6.5. Maybe it should be 6. I don't know what it is, but just 7.5 is too much for an Indiana team that I think you're going to get good quarterback play. And for everything that we have said, that is not something that Oregon saw against Penn State was good quarterback play.
While we're here, we'll do a little sideline quarterback ratings fund. Fernando Mendoza, number 7, according to Sideline, 122 grade. Simpson and Julian Sayin are tied for first, essentially, with a 127. And then there's very, very little gap. Pavia, number 3, Nussmeier, number 4, CJ Carr, number 5, Chambliss for Ole Miss, number 6, Mendoza 7, Dante Moore, number 8, Darian Mensah for Duke, which you've talked about, number 9, Carson Beck, 10, Baron Morton at Tech, number 11, Jalen Daniels healthy so far this season, number 12.
Yes. Yeah.
John Mateer injured for OU, number 13, Bo Pribula, we talked about him earlier, at 14. And so I think the point being there is, like you said, good quarterback play. Mendoza and Moore, both top 10 quarterbacks. A little surprising they would put Mendoza at number 1 because I know that people were very down on him at his time on Cal. But coming into the season, I believe we talked on our preseason bets episode that the model was actually not that low on Mendoza and really was blaming the cast around him and saying, actually, Mendoza was okay. And the model really teased that out. And so that sure enough has looked pretty smart about that. And I think that's, like you said, kind of the difference is that I think that the fact that Penn State's offense played so poorly and they hung in there and had a chance to win that game, took it to overtime, I think just goes to show that this Oregon team, again, like Alabama, like a lot of these teams in college football, good, not great. This just isn't one of those years. Ohio State very well right now looks like by far the best team in the country. But once you get past that, it's not like one of those years where there's a top 2, a top 3, a top 4 that really runs away. It's kind of a lot of parity after that. Anything can happen, which makes taking 7.5 points all the more valuable in a game that should be very entertaining. Folks, the other one that might be a little bit less entertaining, just because also look at those offensive ratings compared to those defensive ratings. Folks, this feels like some of those OU Texas games have been 13-0 or 11-2 or whatever dumb scores have happened. This feels like it could be one of those type games too. Yes. Teams around number 10 for the Red River rivalry game at a new start time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Central. I'm not sure why the start time has changed, if it has to do with the fair or what. Folks, you've got a team in Oklahoma who wants to go faster but doesn't have their starting quarterback, and it's a fairly big drop-off. I mentioned just moments ago, John Mateer, number 13, according to Sideline, gets a 118 grade. Michael Hawkins Jr. gets a 103, and again, Hunter's average. So you're talking the downgrade from more than a standard deviation better than college football average and dropping off to an average college football quarterback is a bit of a hit there for Oklahoma's offense. Texas offense, I'm not sure how much of it's Arch. I'm not sure how much of it's the fact that coming into the season, the model was concerned about their offensive line. Bunch of new players, some of the skill guys, losing guys. So they got a couple of those guys back last week from injury. Didn't seem to matter. Whatever it is with the offense, it's definitely partially Arch. I'm not sure it's all Arch or if it's Arch but whatever it is Texas offense just completely stuck in the mud. Even though OU doesn't have their starting quarterback in this one, we've still got them winning this 57% of the time. This is one of our favorites, Cousin Jared, the WTF game, wrong team favor. Oklahoma plus 128 grade play. This is a run, don't walk for me. Not that I think the price is going to get worse. In fact, the price, I have no idea what it's going to do because I think with both quarterbacks, who really knows? But to me, this is just lock this in, plus odds on the Sooners in a game that historically, there have been some upsets historically where a team that wasn't as good as the other was able to really, play with their Super Bowl out, blah, blah, blah. But when you kind of take away some of the weird ones, Oklahoma's kind of had the upper hand in this matchup for the majority of my adult lifetime, Cousin Jared. So I don't really see any reason why Oklahoma's favored in this. At some point, this Texas offense needs to show us something, and they have yet to do that. I don't see why it goes any different this week in Dallas than it did any other week of the season, sans the week they got to play Sam Houston State, who got destroyed by New Mexico State last week. So not really much to say there. Because, Jared, what are your thoughts on this one?
Kind of expanding on something that you mentioned, this game, when one team is good and the other team's, relatively speaking, not good, doesn't matter. When both teams are good, doesn't matter. When both teams are bad, which is rarely, there were times, but pretty rare, doesn't matter. I mean, I would almost take plus odds with either team in any situation with just how the games have played out amongst these two. I like what you said about Texas's offensive line, because losing 4 starters off last year's team, and we just made a lot of assumptions, and not only about Arch, but also about what Steve Sarkisian was going to be able to do. You can say, well, hey, he's an offensive coach. He's going to be able to scheme them up. Look at all those fancy things that he was doing with Quinn Ewers last year. And if he can do that with Quinn Ewers, he can definitely do this with Arch. And it's like, well, there were probably some other pieces there that we were neglecting to think about. And not only overestimating Arch, but some of the stuff we weren't thinking about. And if Sark, and not even Arch, but like if Sark hasn't, shown the desire or the ability to open up the playbook a little bit to this point in the season, I promise you, Oklahoma's not going to be the week that they're going to open things up some more, because this Oklahoma defense is really good. So I just, I would have probably taken it. I don't know what Sideline says. I haven't even looked. I probably would have taken Oklahoma like minus 110 on this because it feels like at worst a toss up. But yeah, man, I can't believe we're getting plus odds with Oklahoma. I figured this was going to be closer to a pick 'em.
Yeah, sideline says it should be Oklahoma minus 133. The A grade threshold, OU minus 106. So I'm like you, even at minus 110 would have been a B plus grade. I would have said, yeah,
Yeah,
let's fire
yeah,
away at minus 110. The other thing, I mentioned it. Here's the exact record for Oklahoma since the turn of the century: 17-9 against
mm,
Texas. And folks, think about the Texas teams that have been part of that. I know Oklahoma's had some good teams, but that's also the Vince Young and Colt McCoy years. And they still went
mm.
17 and they've gone 17-9 against the Longhorns. Texas had a big win last year in a year that Oklahoma really down. Texas was really good. One of the rare times when the really good team has actually taken care of business, because that's not been the case.
Yeah,
Often it's been kind of a weird game, a lot of high scoring games, a lot of games that either went to overtime or were on the verge of it, a lot of 3-score games in this history. And so, yeah, one of those things where if one team was coming in, 17 point favorite, 10 point favorite, whatever, I think it's a little bit different. But when it's around the same caliber, it's like, well, Oklahoma's had the edge. I don't trust Arch. Why are we getting plus odds here? It doesn't make any sense.
yep, yep.
But sometimes you don't gotta overthink it, right? We know all the ways that can lose, because I'm not gonna ask you for them. Because if you say them, apparently you will speak them into existence. But we know all the ways
Mm,
this can lose. But we're
yep.
just gonna stick with both these defenses are incredible. It should be relatively close matchup. But honestly, even though Oklahoma's on their backup quarterback, they had a bye week coming into this, and I trust that they're going to figure out something, because Texas hasn't figured out anything with Arch
Yep,
Manning yet.
yep.
And so until they do, I don't think you can play them. Folks, we're going to turn back to the weeknight game. So Wednesday night game this week. We've got a Wednesday night game we're going to cover for you, a Thursday night game, and a Friday night game. More picks on the Thursday, Friday games as well over on Patreon. We're going to give you one for each night. Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Liberty at UTEP, folks. And this could be classified in the you don't got to watch them to make the monies, because this game
Yeah,
could be ugly. Liberty all the way down to 119, according to the sideline. Gone are the glory days where they were a top 50 team in almost everybody's model the year they went undefeated. And Sideline actually has UTEP as the slightly better team at home, winning 57% of the time. Not an easy place to get to in El Paso, maybe not an easy place to play necessarily because the altitude, long travel spot here for Liberty. And so plus odds here, anything even money plus odds is definitely a fire away. But even kind of like we talked about in the last game, we should be playing UTEP at this minus 110, minus 120 even. I don't know where this number goes. Sometimes these small games get steamed and the number moves. We've seen them before where we've taken a pick on show around even money. By the time the game hits there, it's like minus 150. That's honestly where I think this one should be, if people realize that this Liberty team isn't that good. Because, Jared, the strength here for UTEP, the difference maker, would be their defense, the only unit not outside of the top 100 of these teams. What's your insight for us on our Wednesday night game?
Liberty is bad. That's basically my insight. This is a double A grade game. But a little teaser, stick around if you're with us on Patreon. This will be a game that we expound a little bit more on, since there's an edge on both the side and the total here. But I just like UTEP because I'm not sure that we've seen the bottom on Liberty as of yet. It's been a consistent downward trend. The other thing is Vasco, the starting quarterback for Liberty, questionable. He didn't play 2 weeks ago. I think Liberty had a bye last week. It is whether or not he's going to play, it's unknown going into this one. But if he's out, I like Liberty or UTEP even more, because the backup with Liberty in the game and a half of action that he's seen has not performed well. So this UTEP team's they're for UTEP, standards is a little bit on the rise.
Yeah.
Had is it Scotty Walden, I think, is the head coach there. I think he came from Austin P, something like that. He's a good young coach. Lots of getting a lot of excitement out in El Paso, which is hard to do for this football program. So I think they're on the way up. And unfortunately, as much as I love Chadwell, Liberty just ain't their season.
Not their season at all. And you're right, you're stealing my thunder, because Jared. But when we get to the double A games, this is a weeknight spot. We have some double A games to talk about, and we will expound on all of those in a little after show special if you're with us over on Patreon. Because Jared might open that up to anyone who's on Patreon. Even if you're a free member on Patreon, we might even open that up to you. Just gotta sign up over there, and you get to hear us talk about a few more games. Give us some more thoughts on all the other A grade plays that the model is providing for us. That's Wednesday, Thursday Southern Miss at Georgia Southern. We've got Southern Miss by 3. Southern says they win by an average of 10, so an A grade play. This would also classify in the run don't walk section. No idea if it gets to 3.5 or higher, but there's really no reason why it should be this low. Because Jared, Southern Miss is a team that we were skeptical on early in the season because of the fact that, player based model. And so we knew all the transfers from Marshall, but overall they were being treated like they were already a great team. And the model was saying not so fast. We had some mixed results with that. I think we maybe went 1-1, fading them a couple of weeks early on, but now the model is flipped and says we should back them. Do you think this is more about the model and the market kind of syncing up on Southern Miss, or do you think this is more about Georgia Southern, who has the 4th worst defense in college football, according to Sideline?
Yeah, I'm going to go with that part, the fourth worst defense according to Sideline, because Georgia Southern, ever since Clay Helton has been there, it has been a situation of good offense, play fast, and have the defense do enough. Well, 133 is not enough. Georgia Southern needs that to be like 110. To be more competitive in the Sun Belt, not 133. But yeah, to some of the comments you made about Huff, bringing over a lot of the team from Marshall. I mean, that Marshall team won the Sun Belt last year. The Southern Miss team is showing improvement with a lot of those players. Huff, I could have worked him into a good, bad, ugly segment at some point, because what was going on with him and Marshall, I don't know all of the details, but he was a good football coach. There were, and I mean, it's well known, there was stuff.
I think we
behind
talked about
scenes.
This on one of the shows too. We were kind of like, what happened?
There's stuff behind the scenes that the administration and Huff did not see eye to eye. And so like, this was really a good get for Southern Miss, because unless there were, if not for that friction between the administration and Huff, he would have never been on the market. So anyway, yeah, I think Southern Miss is on the way up. Georgia Southern, man, they got to get that defense together. I thought when Clay Helton went to Georgia Southern that is like, hey, this is like a great opportunity to escape Los Angeles and, build up a football team. Georgia Southern had success in the past, and it just hasn't worked out, especially that defense is just not.
It looked early on, I think in his tenure, it looked like that would be the case. I think we were all expecting that. It seemed like that. And then it's like they kind of started off a little bit up, and then now it's just kind of like they can't.
Well, and really, I think that he may have been the coach there when they went to Lincoln and beat Nebraska in one of those Scott Frost years. And so, of course, that helped kind of set the expectations going forward. And they just kind of never went up from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Friday night, we've got some good options here. South Florida, North Texas, strong weeknight game here. We've got number 60 in South Florida, number 49 in North Texas. This won't come as a surprise to anybody who's watching the show all year. The model hasn't been overly high on South Florida. It did not give them quite the credit that everybody else gave them for the Boise State win and for the Florida win. Both of those, I watched those games, and I wasn't overly impressed either. So I agreed with the model in that. And then we saw them struggle, of course, against Miami. A good team for sure, and much improved from last year. But maybe, everyone get a little carried away with some of the top 25 talk. But this North Texas team, the model has really loved. Last week, A grade on them. And they got the cover. They didn't get the over for us, but they did get the cover. So the model looking smart there. It's going to back them again, winning a nice 69% of the time. Around even money for this one. Another situation, kind of a run don't walk, because I just don't see. I think it's more likely that this number gets out to minus 130, minus 140, something like that by the time that this kicks off, as people start realizing this North Texas team is legit. Their offense is insanely good. Should be a lot of points. Look at the pace numbers. They're both top 10 teams. Because, Jared, I think this is one of those where at some point the market's going to realize the South Florida team, again, good, just not quite what maybe everybody freaked out about in those first two games. And if that's the case, at some point, people got to start realizing this North Texas team a much better than a 50-50 shot to win this game. What's your take?
If we talked about it when it happened, not that South Florida shouldn't have beat Boise State, but Boise State had so many self-inflicted wounds in that game. I mean,
South Florida was aided by the fake punt.
Yes, there were just, that game was basically over at halftime, and it was just one weird thing after another that kept happening. And there was a lot of that game where South Florida wasn't expanding the lead. They just kind of got the lead through a bunch of weird things and then just kind of sat on it. And then going to Florida, classic Billy Napier, Florida stuff, Florida finds a way to lose that game. They had Shoegate a couple of years ago against LSU, and then they had Spitgate, where the guy spit on the South Florida player here, got the 15-yard penalty, gave him a first down, led to the game-winning field goal, or the drive that had the game-winning field goal.
Multiple penalties that were causing touchdowns to be taken off the board, the safety in that game. I mean, Florida just.
And North Texas has been the antithesis of that from the perspective of they've just, for the most part, whipped up on every team that they've played this season. I think they won the Army game by 10 points, but it never felt like Army was going to be able to come back and win that game. North Texas did have one game where they messed around against one of the directional Michigans the first or second week of the season.
Overtime,
and they ended up coming back and winning that game. Other than that, North Texas has just dominated people. And this to me feels a lot like, last week when we talked about Maryland and I guess to a point New Mexico, that didn't really play out the right way. But yes, North Texas has won these games, but you also have to look at how they've been winning them, which has been very convincingly. And so you contrast that with South Florida. While they've played bigger competition, it's they've got a lot of help in some of those wins.
Very well said. To the AA games, again, folks, a level of minor league baseball type of battery in games the model has feelings on. We will cover some of the extra A grades in the after show. You can sign up on Patreon and you can check that out. We've got 2 A grades on this, not saying stronger than A grades. It's just saying the model likes the side and the total. For each one of these, we're going to give you one of them, the one we think there's better discussion on and or like the most. James Madison winning by an average of 23 according to Sideline. We're going to lay 18 just each into the A grade against Louisiana here at noon Eastern on Saturday. Because Jared, the James Madison defense, not a problem whatsoever. Number 36 in the country. And for the Sun Belt, that is very strong. Here's been the issue for James Madison has been the offense has been sometimes inconsistent. It was very struggled, to say the least, last week. And I'm going to go a little inside baseball here, even though this is college football. They've struggled offensively on the road. They struggled on the road in general last year. They got the job done in getting the win. They didn't come anywhere near covering this last week. And so I think going back home, though, is going to be a recipe for success. We also saw last week a real lack of faith in their quarterback. But you know what really solves those issues is playing the number 123 ranked defense in the country. We saw Louisiana just play a game with Marshall a couple of weeks ago that had over 100 points in it. This Louisiana defense is a sieve, absolutely. And so if there's any spot where James Madison can get a little more confidence in their quarterback, get the offense rolling a little bit better, I think it's at home, number one. And I think it's against a defense like this. And so even though James Madison's been a little bit of a frustrating team this year with regards to backing them or their overs where the model just thinks their offense can do a little bit and it keeps falling behind, I think this is the spot where the offense can look good. Now, they play a competent defense, are on the road, maybe not, but neither one of those situations applies here. Because James Madison laying 18. How do you feel about that one?
The quarterback for Louisiana, the new quarterback, his name's Lunch.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I've got on.
I was thinking the same thing. The lunch man came in against Marshall, looked better than the other quarterback had looked. He's their third stringer now. I think one of their guys is injured. Again, we always say no disrespect to the players. We don't know any of them personally. So if they're good guys or not, we don't know. They're much better at their jobs, than we could ever be at playing college quarterback or high school quarterback or even for me, middle school quarterback. But I'm not sure he's the answer. It's not really a big sample size. And so I'm not going to get a little carried away by this guy came in against a terrible Marshall defense and threw a couple touchdown passes. Let's see how he does on the road against James Madison, because I'm not sure he's going to be able to do much against that defense. We'll see. But yes, definitely an A-grade name.
Yes.
Yeah. Nothing else. Yep. Houston and Oklahoma State also at noon Eastern. Houston struggled against Texas Tech, but if you watch the game, you did see some positives from them. A lot of red zone stops for that defense. They hung around a little bit more than they probably should have against a Texas Tech team that looks like the class of the Big 12, a team that Sideline had as number one in the conference coming into the season and looks justified in that prediction. And they'll face the opposite of Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. I think that's really the bottom line. Even though Oklahoma State has historically had a solid home field advantage, I don't trust them to do anything. We're going to lay the 14 with the Cougs here. Barely an A-grade play here. The model says they win by an average of 18. Cousin Jared, what's your take?
Yeah, Oklahoma State's just so bad. They are so bad. Connor Wegman in concussion protocol for Houston. Sideline would say doesn't matter. The backup similar grade, and I believe he may
Played a
have
lot the last
played
couple of
some.
years too.
Yeah. I was about to say played some for Houston last year, second year in the system. I do not believe there would be much of a drop off there. I don't want to say it would be an improvement, but a couple of weeks ago I talked about how Houston had been running Connor Wegman a little bit more, and I think Chris is the last name of the backup quarterback there. I think he has the potential to run the ball some as well. So I think that would personally help their offense if they were running the quarterback a little bit more. I know this is on the road, but man, like I was thinking about it a couple of days ago as I go through and do roster updates for the injuries, and I'm looking at Oklahoma State, some of the guys they have hurt. I'm almost like, why come back? Like, why would you come back this season, especially if you haven't played in, more than 4 games, potentially preserve your red shirt and then, see what happens next year or transfer out. I mean, it is just a bad situation. And we talked last week about them firing Gundy on a Tuesday. And it's like I feel like that is just indicative of how the season has gone for Oklahoma State. They couldn't even fire the coach in a well thought out and well executed manner. So as long as sideline says fade Oklahoma State, I'm going to have absolutely no qualms with doing it.
Arizona last week was one of our favorite plays, laying a big number. Obviously, that was at home, but that game had, Oklahoma State kind of kept it close a little bit at one point, but there were a couple of weird miscues from Arizona. That game could have ended up being a 50-point game, and it turned out to still be an easy cover for us. Baylor went on the road and beat Oklahoma State by 18, which again is the exact number that the model says Houston wins by an average of. And honestly, I'm not sure if Baylor and Houston are that different. If they played on a neutral field today and you said pick them, I don't know who I would pick. That's one of
Right.
those classic immovable objects meets the whatever movable
Yeah.
force, whatever we talk
Yeah.
about. But
Yeah.
Oklahoma State lost at home to Tulsa, and that's bad enough. But folks, the one I want to focus on is actually the one that people probably aren't talking about as much, which is when they went to Eugene and lost 69-3. And that's obviously not a good thing to lose 69-3. Oregon's a very good team, but Oregon beat them the way that Oregon beats, Eastern Washington. They beat them the way that they would
Right.
beat, I don't know, Georgia Southern or somebody like that. And that's what Oklahoma State is at this point. You can see that. When is the last time a non-Kansas Big 12 team was ranked 123rd in college football, according to the sideline? I can't remember that. I mean,
And I mean, Kansas probably was down there, but even 120 would have been pushing it for those Kansas teams.
yeah, I mean, pushing bottom 10 is very difficult for teams in
Yeah.
this spot. We've seen it a few years ago. We saw Vanderbilt, but I mean, for the most part, you just can't end up with a team that's in one of these power conferences ranked that low, because as long as they show any level of competency, we say, yeah, they're getting killed by these really good teams, but they would beat up on the bad teams. And you look at Oklahoma State, it's like, I'm not sure they would. And so
Yeah.
I think this Houston team, they weren't able to go out there and get the win convincingly against Oregon State on the road, but this one's a much friendlier road trip. And honestly, a team in Oklahoma State that I'm not sure isn't worse than Oregon State is. And
Yeah.
that's saying a lot. One more double A game here for you. Michigan and USC. We've got this as a coin toss game. Michigan winning 51% of the time. We're going to take Michigan plus 120 as an A grade. USC better on offense and defense. Michigan better on defense and offense. Games at USC, the travel spot not ideal, not as quite as bad as some of the cross country things. You're not coming from the East Coast. You're coming from a state that is basically Central Time Zone, and Michigan could be Central Time Zone, depending on how you want to. If you can make a case for them to be, at least. So maybe not quite
Yeah.
as bad as some of the travel, but tough travel spot here for Michigan. That's kind of the concern. But as much as we've seen some of these teams travel across the country and struggle, and we have to note that, and so maybe this doesn't become one of your favorite plays of the week. We saw last week a team like Duke go out to Cal, struggle on, maybe in the first part of the game, but end up winning that game by, I believe, 24 points. And so it can be done traveling to the West Coast, especially here for an evening game. Wolverines here at plus odds. Because, Jared, what do you like about it?
This just feels like an extension of every issue that Lincoln Riley had when he was at Oklahoma. I feel like it's just imported all of that to USC, which is when they play a team that's going to hit you in the mouth and you can't really just out athlete them, and you got to buckle down on defense and stop the run. Lincoln Riley just has a history of being Lincoln Riley teams have a history of being incapable of doing that. And so the fact that I can get plus odds on a team like Michigan, I feel good about that play. The other thing I would say, and we'll talk more about it in the extended part of it, but if you're looking at the total in this game, one thing I would say is it has seemed that USC's played better offensively during their time in the Big Ten, has played better offensively at home than on the road. So, like last year, this game got to 51 when they were playing in Ann Arbor. I think the dynamics might be a little bit different for USC on offense having this game at home. But my main thesis still stands that I just don't know. Historically, Lincoln Riley teams just haven't had it in them in games like this. It could be close, could be down to the wire, but I like Michigan to come out on top, and the fact that I'm getting plus odds for that, I'll take that every day of the week.
One of the things that I like about this is that Bryce Underwood gets a 109 grade according to sideline number 48 quarterback, and I don't think that's wrong necessarily from what I've seen from him. I think as a true freshman, that's being the number 48 quarterback's not a bad start. But I think his upside might be unrivaled with regards to who has the biggest chance to move up in college football for quarterbacks, because there are some other young quarterbacks that are surely going to get better, but a lot of them the model already has is better. Whereas I think Underwood might be has the possibility to be one of the bigger jumpers over the second half of the college football season here, because obviously the, game experience or whatever is so valuable for him at this age, and against a USC defense that can sometimes be a little bit porous. This seems like if he's going to have a little bit of a coming out party, a little bit of a starting for the 2026 Heisman campaign, this could be the game where that starts, because when I watch him, I think the tools are there, and they just gotta get it all put together. But I think all the tools are there for this Michigan offense to be competent. And again, as we talked about before, that's really all they need to be competitive in the Big Ten is competent. And I think they're on the cusp of that. And I think a guy like Underwood, just a few more reps here, and I think it's possible for that to happen.
I wish I could remember who said this, but somebody made the comment that if they could make any trade in college football, just quarterback for quarterback, they would want to trade Drew Aller at Penn State for Underwood at Michigan. And not saying that Michigan should do that, but the general idea being that, Michigan is a heavy play action run team, and that's what Drew Aller needs to succeed. Talked about maybe he's not the best fit for that offense they have at Penn State right now. And so Aller would be a good fit for Michigan. But then to your point, like Sharon Moore just seems to be keen on kind of not letting Underwood, turning him loose. Whereas you think if, Underwood was on Penn State, you saw what Kalinicki did with some of those Kansas offenses with a mobile quarterback. It's like, oh man, what would he do with a guy like Underwood? So I wish I could give credit to whoever had that idea, but that was their proposed trade that he thought would help both teams.
Yeah, maybe. And that's the other thing too. With we've talked about this, I think before we talked about it. I don't remember if it was for the Oklahoma game for Michigan or a different one. We said we didn't really know what would happen with Underwood. When they would let the horse out of the barn, so to speak, right? When they would really open things up, when they would let him run a little bit more, when they would let him take some deeper shots, exactly what they might do. And so we still don't. And that's obviously going to be the potential biggest limiting factor. It's been the biggest limiting factor for Michigan forever. It seems like has been that with the quarterbacks, is not letting them do too much and hurt them. And a lot of times that's been justified because they haven't had quarterbacks worthy of that necessarily.
Yeah.
This is one where it might be, you obviously worry about the age and whatnot, but again, could be a spot where, let them do a little bit more this week against a little bit more of an open defense. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a little optimistic there, but if nothing else, Michigan's defense typically travels, should keep them in the game and hopefully give us a good chance here to win plus odds Saturday night. A series of games here, run, don't walk. We love these numbers. We want you to go ahead and lock them in as soon as possible because they're right around a key number. First from 1 p.m. Saturday. Northern Illinois and Eastern Michigan, definitely one that would also fall into you don't got to watch them to make the monies, but folks, we love the under 48.5 here. Only a B grade value according to the model, but 48 is your key number in the upper 40s. 47 also potentially a key number there. And so getting the win on both of those where the model thinks this would be more likely to land in the mid 40s and the upper 40s. Cousin Jared, what stuck out to you on this one?
Northern Illinois has had a grand total of 0 games go over this number so far this season. They had one game get to 48. That was against Mississippi State. Their next closest game had 39 points. This team has a type of game they want to play, and they seem to be able to drag every team into that specific type of game. And you look at the like Northern Illinois, I don't know even if they wanted to, even going up against this Eastern Michigan defense, which is absolutely terrible.
Second worst in the country.
I don't know if Northern Illinois' offense is going to be able to do anything, though. It is genuinely an even matchup there, which is hard to say when you have a defense that's almost 2 standard deviations worse than average. But the only really above average unit relative to the competition here is the Northern Illinois defense, and I think they do what they've done all season, which is really hold this Eastern Michigan team down.
Above average also with regards to slowness. Look at that pace there, number 133 for NIU. And when you look at Eastern Michigan, they do tend to play a lot of higher scoring games. You say, yeah, they go slightly faster than average, and that defense is terrible. I think that was kind of where I was going, is kind of your point. I'll just kind of like summarize it there. Is for as much as Eastern Michigan plays a little bit fast, as a terrible defense, Northern Illinois has a terrible offense. The best unit on the field is their defense. And they don't just play a little bit slow, folks. They play a lot slow. And so this is one where, I think the market's looking at this saying, yeah, absolutely, that's slow place for NIU. NIU's defense being the best unit on the field, we should say this is going to have fewer than the average number of points. Again, average being in the mid to low 50s. But it's like, yeah, but Northern Illinois plays really slow. Like, I know Eastern Michigan wants to play higher scoring games, but NIU's offense just not that good, and NIU's defense at pace good enough to keep this lower scoring than even the market has dropped it to. Under 40.5 there, beat grade. 3:30 p.m. Eastern, Nebraska at Maryland. I don't know. Maryland's becoming like the poor man's Indiana for us, I feel like, they're from last year, where they're just a team that we're just kind of backing every week. Ho-hum, making money off of. We're going to take them +7. Sideline says this is pretty close to a 50-50 game, that Nebraska is the better team, but on the road, we don't really know exactly how it'll play out. Maryland's defense strong, offense not so much. That's where the Terrapins could have some trouble. Because of Jared, you think it's still worth taking the 7? Tell us more.
Yeah, I like getting a full 7 points here. I'm also seeing a lot of 6.5 even money, which I think I would also take. Not a big fan of 6.5, but am a fan of even money. So if that's the best you could get, I would also do that. I'm beginning to think Nebraska, even though their defense is ranked number 33, may have some issues on defense. They gave up 9 yards per carry to Michigan, and then allowed Michigan State to score 27 points against them at home last week. Michigan State actually had more first downs in that game than Nebraska did. It was not a good offensive or defensive showing, really, for Nebraska in that game. I know it's a letdown spot for Maryland after giving up that lead. I get it. But just something's been off with Nebraska. We've seen it where, it happened to Nebraska last year, where they played Ohio State really close, and then that threw them off for an entire month. I'm not saying they're going to lose the game, but Nebraska could just be a little off here for a while after kind of giving their all in that Michigan game. We talked about it at the time, the biggest home game that Nebraska had in quite a long time. I already talked about Maryland last week. I really like what they're doing. Malik Washington, like what he's doing. I think they can overcome the potential letdown spot here. And again, really like that I'm getting a full touchdown.
I think that people would probably be surprised to see Nebraska's defense ranked number 33, especially given the Matt Rule coach team, and that he actually is a defensive guru as opposed to the current, Baylor head coach. And I've been a big Matt Rule fan, but I'm like you, something just seems a little bit off with him. We've seen this progression that Matt Rule had at Temple. We saw the progression at Baylor, and we were starting to see it with Nebraska, but I'm not quite sure it's there this year for him. I don't know if it's the quarterback, being obviously the hotshot prospect, if he just needs another year, if it's the tools around him. I kind of think it's the defense, because the model having Nebraska's offense at number 25, I think if you came into the season and said Nebraska's offense would be 25 for a Matt Rule coach team with the way they like to play, you'd say that's probably good enough to be really competitive in this Big Ten. And obviously not necessarily at the tier of Ohio State, but just right one step below it. But that defense being outside the top 25, according to Sideline, is is a little bit concerning for me. And we, like I said, we saw it against Michigan, even against Michigan State here. This Maryland offense isn't great, but it's not like Michigan State's great. And now you put that game in Maryland, put Nebraska on the road, and I think Nebraska will be happy to get out of there with a win. And so that
Yep.
gives us a lot of
Yep.
ways that we can cover. Getting to 7, we can even push if needed. So a lot to like there about that one. Also at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, Wake Forest at Oregon State. Could have also been a don't gotta watch and make the monies because,
Yeah.
folks, this game, not great. Oregon State. We mentioned them earlier. Not quite as bad as Oklahoma State, according to Sideline, but still not inside the top 100. Wake Forest, the much better team. But we have to remember, of course, the difference between number 69 and number 108. Not a lot of points, not as many points as you would think necessarily because of the jumble up of all the middle of those teams, but enough that the model still says that Wake Forest should win this by about 10 points on the road. We're only having to like 2.5 rather than having to like 3 or more. Cousin Jared, I don't know what the miss is here. The market was really, really steaming against Oregon State early on in the season. At some point, I would have thought that would have continued just into the opening number at some point when everyone realizes how bad this Oregon State team is. Maybe it was the fact that they took Houston overtime at home. I'm not really sure. Very tough travel spot for Wake Forest. I mean, you're talking literally across the country. So again, you can't make it one of our favorite plays anytime you're traveling across multiple time zones. But to only have to lay 2.5, this feels a lot like that Duke, California situation where it was also a terrible travel spot, and Duke really looked concerning early on in that game, but came through and took care of business. And is Duke as good as Wake Forest? Probably not, but I don't think Oregon State's even as good as Cal is. So no reason why this number shouldn't be bigger. Cousin Jared, what's your take?
Yeah, there's 2 games that you could say this about this week. We're not talking about one of them on the show, and it's abnormal to say this about a line that's this close. But in my opinion, the more important number here is 6.5, 7 than it is 3. And so, if for some reason you watch this and you can't find 2.5, you can only find 3, or you can only find 3.5, or like you said, it ends up getting steamed out to like 6 or 6.5. Still playing it.
Yep.
I don't care. Wake Forest has
don't lay more than a touchdown.
Yeah, don't lay more than a touchdown. But I took the Wake Forest over on the win total this year. I think I went over 4.5. I like Dickert as coach there. Came from Washington State, so I had some familiarity with Oregon State, playing them every year. The Pac-12. I mean, those were all the teams in the Pac-12 there the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And Wake Forest has been better than even I thought they were going to be. They were just that 2-point conversion away from beating Georgia Tech. Man, really would have liked to have had that one in my back pocket right now. But they've just been really solid. Beat Virginia Tech last week. Robbie Ashford, I feel like, is on his 15th team, but seems to have finally found an offense that's working. He's playing well, and even though that the offense is number 83, that's still, compared to where I thought Wake Forest would be this year, that's pretty good. But it's been more about the defense being number 55 there. These teams, I think, are just in 2 different classes. I feel like Wake Forest is just like a below average P4 team, slightly below average, and Oregon State's like a bad P4 team, but they're not in the P4 anymore. Anyway, yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that.
4.2. I don't know I don't know how you handle a conference with 2 teams. It's still one of the weirder things that we've experienced.
Yeah.
But here we are in this new age of college football. And just to put a bow on what you said earlier, and I know we've said this before, but in case someone hasn't heard our take on this, our take is we're moving in the right direction for college sports. We need to get there faster. Let's just go ahead and get wherever the heck we're going with this, because we're not in a good spot now with these conferences. It's terrible. And I don't know where it's going, but let's just go ahead and get there, because whatever we land at has to be better than what we've landed at for right now.
Yep.
Anyway, weird conference stuff aside, weird game. I can't imagine, if you'd told me Wake Forest was playing Oregon State in October a few years ago, I would have said, man, college football realignment got really crazy. And it did, but not for the reasons you would have thought. This just makes no sense. But here we are, landed 2.5. Cousin Jared, like you said, as long as we're laid up to 7, really, that's really probably the key number we should be more focused on, because this Oregon State team, not very good at all. As long as Wake Forest can make the travel spot work, they should be able to come away with the victory. 7 p.m. Eastern, Florida coming off a huge win. I'm not really sure I'm expecting a letdown spot from Florida, because we saw them rip off this last year, game after game. We've talked about it earlier. Florida wasn't able to get it done against LSU, even though they should have covered that game because of all the interceptions. But Billy Napier, the anti-James Franklin. right, has consistently struggled with those games that he should win. Already blew one earlier this season to South Florida, but in the big game steps up, and you saw what they did against Texas. They dominated that Texas game. Texas never really felt in that game at all. Tougher here having to travel to Texas A&M because, and Jared, while we think that the Aggies still win this game by an average of almost 7, the fact that we get the 7 and the hook in what could be a nail-biting game in a lot of ways for the back door to be open makes us want to take the Gators here at +7.5 B grade. Only a B grade, not an A grade, not quite enough value for it to get to the A grade because, Jared, one you think is worth it. You are a former Texas A&M alum. You've been to many of the games you mentioned earlier last week, going to the last one.
Yeah.
What's your take, having seen a bunch of both of these teams, and why the 7.5 offers us enough value to be worth the play?
Yeah, I'll be at this game too. So what I would say is that, well, number one, Billy Napier, it's like he looks at the schedule and he's like, what's the minimum I have to do to keep my job? And this year he got his back to the wall early in the season, and he's like, I guess we're going to turn it up now.
Earlier than last year. Last year it was more like around, around the 7th game of the season, I feel like, when it was back to the wall. This year was like after like week 4.
Yeah. It was after the 5 interceptions against LSU, and they easily should have won that game. But so I think it'd be easy to say, well, you'd be worried about taking the points here because which Florida's going to show up, or are you going to have DJ Lagway throw 5 interceptions? Is Napier going to mismanage his timeouts and allow A&M to cover? Because even though they beat Texas, he did not have exceptional clock management there at the end of that game. But when you look at A&M has had multiple SEC games this season where they have just done nothing for quarters at a time. And then there'll be a deluge in the third quarter where they put up 21 points in one quarter and pull away. Or, they hold Auburn 0 of 13 on third down or whatever it was. And I think that they held Mississippi State like 0 for 9 on third down or something this past weekend too. That's not sustainable. That is impressive, but it is not sustainable. So in my mind, you could say, well, Florida has, bad showing. Well, A&M has shown they can go multiple quarters without doing anything good as well. Or A&M plays really well. Well, Florida perfectly has the capability to play close with them. So I just think there are really good things about both of these teams, and there are bad things about both of these teams. I don't know which one's going to rear its head on this day, but I'm going to take the 7 and the hook and say I have more ways that I win that play than I lose it.
Because, Jared, I apologize to the viewers if I botched this, but if I remember correctly, Miami hosted Florida a couple weeks ago, right on the heels of that LSU game, right on the heels of us being like, oh my gosh, DJ Lagway, like, what are you doing? Like, what happened? DJ Lagway, Arch Manning, the two biggest confusing, what's happened to your form? What's happened to your mechanics? What the heck are you doing out there? You look lost. You look like you can't read anything, right? We saw that against LSU. Like, we knew we had questions. And the next week, I believe Miami was only a 7.5 point favorite in Miami. Now, A&M's a 7.5 point favorite in College Station. I'm sorry. Does anyone think that A&M is as good as Miami? Like, that really surprises me there, because I feel like Miami's a touchdown better than A&M. This A&M team is solid for sure, but like Miami's, if Ohio State isn't the best team in the country, it's got to be Miami, right?
Yeah. Yes, I would agree with that. And people are only remembering the A&M defense from the last 2 weeks in those 2 SEC games. They're forgetting conveniently that they gave up, and that wasn't all on the defense, but gave up 40 points to Notre Dame, gave up a backdoor cover to UTSA in the first week game, gave up 24 points to Utah State. Like, this A&M defense had its flaws. I think the Auburn offense was flawed. I put that Auburn game more on Auburn than I do A&M. Absolutely.
We'll talk about Auburn in the after show, because there's a specific thing. So if you want to talk about Auburn, hit me, and Patreon's the place to be for that.
I will say A&M's defense played great against Mississippi State, but that is one game. It's Mississippi State. Florida, more battle tested as of recent than A&M has been since that Notre Dame game. So I understand both of these teams have flaws. 7.5 points can make up for some of those flaws, in my opinion.
And I especially like this because we saw Florida turn it on and show up and do what they needed to do against Texas. It was very convincing against Texas. And that doesn't mean that Florida's back. It doesn't mean Florida has all their problems solved. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying we think Florida goes out and wins this game necessarily, but this is now, at least we have the proof. We saw it last week that this Florida team can do what they did last year under Billy Napier down the stretch, which is go in there and be competitive. And that's all they need to
Right.
do in this game is be competitive because they
Yep.
were competitive against Tennessee. We took a ton of points against them last year. They should have won that game. Didn't matter. We had the points, right? Same thing here. They don't have to win. They just got to cover 7.5. I'm really surprised it's on the north side of 7. Definitely a run, don't walk. Grab the 7 in the hook, because there's a lot of ways that Florida loses this game close. And if they lose close, a lot of ways we cover a number like this.
Yep.
Also at
Yep.
7:30 p.m. Eastern, our last run, don't walk, Texas Tech minus 13.5 against Kansas. Kansas had a strong showing to get us the cover against Central Florida, barely, in a game that just did not feel like they were going to do enough to get the cover on that one, and they were on the heels of their offense. Jalen Daniels healthy, looking strong, and we talked about him earlier. This Texas Tech team, now number 4 in the country, according to Sideline. This is less about Kansas and more about Tech. I think Tech, I'm not sure we've seen the ceiling for them yet. I mean, the sky's the limit for this team. They bought in, they bought a lot of players.
They bought players that they brought in.
And it has been a great investment for them. I mean, there's just nothing else to say about Texas Tech. They look incredible on both sides of the ball. You wanted to see it on the defensive side. They have showed it.
Yep.
We've seen it on the offensive side. They struggled in the red zone against the Houston defense, against a really Willie Fritz coach team. This Kansas defense is not as good as that Houston defense. At home, this might get ugly because Tech looks like the real deal. Looks like they might be. We talk about these close games in the Big 12. It looks like they might be the team that just railroads everyone this year. They look so dang good. I'm surprised this isn't on the north side of 14. Sideline says 18. I mean, if this gets steamed out towards 17, it wouldn't shock me. I'm not playing it there, but on the south side of 14, I'm absolutely playing it. A great pick. Tell us more.
Yeah, Jacob Rodriguez, Texas Tech linebacker, really good. Sideline has him as one of obviously one of the best defensive players on Tech, but he has like a 70 grade, which is really good. Trying to think of the last Texas Tech linebacker that was really good. Is it like Zach Thomas in like the mid 90s? Like I don't know.
Stud for the Miami Dolphins for a decade.
Yeah. Long time ago. It's funny you said for you this
last
was
Tech
about
player
Tech.
I could probably name.
What? Oh,
like on defense. I mean.
On defense?
On defense, yeah.
They had the one defensive lineman that got taken early in the draft recently, but seeing as I am referring to him by his position, yes, you are correct. I cannot name I cannot name him, so that is accurate. It's funny you said this is about Tech because obviously Tech is very good, but for me this is more about Kansas. Sideline has had an infatuation with Kansas all season. Basically says that you should be backing Kansas every week, and the fact that we've got the hard turn here and A grade on Tech, that tells me something that not only with my eyes have I seen that Texas Tech is so good, and I would want to lay that number, but Sideline, I think is probably, having Kansas at number 28. I'm not sure Sideline could be any higher on Kansas than what it is, and it's still saying lay those points. So for me, I just Sideline saying going so hard towards fading Kansas is telling me something.
Yeah, I just cannot say enough times I think this Tech team is. You can see it there in number 4, according to Sideline. I think they are just really good. I'm not sure exactly how they would compare straight up against some of the top teams in the SEC and the Big Ten, but I'd like to see it. And I think we'll get a chance to see it in the playoff because I think they are talented enough to surprise some people. And I think, I guess, long story short, what I'll try to make my point here, which is mostly that I think a lot of people would assume this Tech team would be a touchdown underdog, lose by a touchdown or more to teams like Alabama, to teams like, Oklahoma when their quarterback's healthy, to teams like Georgia, et cetera. I think they're right in the ballpark with those teams. I think they are just as good as all of them, fighting for who else is really good this year behind Ohio State. And I just think they're really out on a mission. And at home, I have no problem laying a big number with them like this. Folks, we've been referencing it all show. You don't got to watch and make the monies, but folks, this might be our Picasso of the season here.
Yes.
UMass and Kent State, number 134, number 136. I was just messaging our Discord earlier in the day about how as much as Ohio State is by far and away the best team in the country, and you can see all that, again, all of our people on Patreon are seeing all the individual ratings for all sorts of stuff here. The bottom 3 in college football are really low. I was just talking about, and lo and behold, 2 of the bottom 3 are playing each other.
Yeah.
Kent State, we wondered if they would have competition for that bottom spot coming into the season. They might be from a team like UMass, but even then, the model still says that Kent State is still significantly worse than UMass. Even at home, we've got this as a coin toss game, folks. Kent State is favored in a college football game
Wow.
And I don't know why
Wow.
that's the case. So we're going to take plus odds here,
Yeah.
plus 125 with UMass A grade. Cousin Jared, is there anything more to say other than you can get plus odds fading Kent State against an FBS team? Honestly, there's probably 70 FCS teams that I would take plus odds with them against, right?
Yeah, that's basically it. And I will admit that I don't have the best Twitter game, but when I saw this, I had to quote tweet it with the Batman quote, "You either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain." And we have lived long enough to see Kent State favored in an FBS game, and it just doesn't feel right. So yeah, give me UMass. Don't care how bad they are. Kent State's really bad too. And so I completely agree with you. Worst case, this is a toss up and you get plus 125. This is the definition of the math and the statistics and everything else. Like, just blind play UMass on this one, guys. And for the love of all that's good in the world, don't watch it. Do not watch this game.
Cousin Jared, you sometimes have an affinity for bad football. Are you going to watch any of this game? Are you
No,
just a play
no.
or two? No.
No, I watched, you don't understand what it has to be for me to have a Kent State game on one of the screens. It has to be really, really bad. I think there was one time last season where I watched like a half or a quarter maybe, and we had already locked, I don't know, whatever we were playing Kent State on that week. It was a lock after the first quarter. So I was just like checked out at that point, but absolutely not. This game's at 2:30. I will not be watching it. If it was at 11, maybe you could catch it like the beginning when, some of those other didn't have some good early start games. Absolutely not at 2:30. No.
Folks, UMass is terrible. They are terrible. They might be worse than Kent State. I don't know. I think the point of this is not just to dog on Kent State, because again, it's both Kent State and UMass. But just to reference, we say friend of the show, Bill Connolly, of course, inventor of SP Plus over there, one of the another analytic system, just like Sideline. He actually does FBS, FCS, D2, D3 as well. And he's got Kent State down at 194 overall. Now, he's got UMass actually behind that. But the point is less about, is Kent State better or worse than UMass? The point is mostly to say that he's got both those teams, and Sam Houston right between them, who is also dreadful, around number 200. There's only 136 teams in FBS. And so this is more about, this is going to be such terrible football that neither team should be favored by anything meaningful in this. You give Kent State the tiniest edge for home field in a game that, because the travel won't be because of the crowd influence, because I'm not sure it's going to be anybody at this game. But the point being that when you have this bad of football, it should be like Kent State like minus 115 and UMass minus 105. Kent State minus 120, UMass even money, something like that. But to make Kent State out here at minus 145, and just how bad both these teams are, like, any nonsense can happen in this game. You got plus odds? Like, come on.
Yeah. And maybe that's a good way. I'd never, for some reason, I hadn't thought of it from that perspective. You're telling me you're going to lay minus 140 or minus 145 with Kent State? What planet are you on? Like, that is just, that would be like the worst investment of dollars you could ever possibly make. And so, like, I mean, come on, just that I don't know. That's
there are people out there talking themselves into laying the money line with Kent State. I'm like, please don't. It doesn't mean they don't win.
Yeah.
Again, it's 50-50 that they win this game. Sideline says 49%, maybe it's 51, whatever. It's around 50-50, right? Again, all models are wrong, some models are useful. So it's not to say Kent State can absolutely win this game. There's a 50-50 chance we wake up on Sunday and go, Kent State won a conference game. Look, congrats for them, right? The point is about the price and the long-term value of this, to say in the long run, laying odds with Kent State is insane.
Right.
So you got plus odds here. Ugly football game. I wouldn't take UMass plus 105. I wouldn't take UMass even like plus 125. Sign me up. It's going to be ugly. Who knows what's going to happen? And that's exactly what we're looking for in a plus 125 game, because I have no idea what's going to happen. Or bread and butter, basically. Old Dominion and Marshall, a team in Marshall, again, we talked about earlier, losing their coach, Charles Huff, and losing all those players to Southern Miss, the class of the conference last year, winning the conference last year, to an Old Dominion team, maybe the surprise of the conference this year, maybe the team like Marshall that might sneak up. We weren't talking about Marshall winning that conference last year. It was all about James Madison. It was all about Coastal Carolina, South Alabama, right? I could keep naming teams, all of these really good Sun Belt teams. Old Dominion might be the surprise this year that sneaks in there. People are really high on them. Here's the thing, though, about that setup is that's exactly how we're describing it. Old Dominion on the way up, Marshall on the way down. We're going to lay the 14
Mm,
and a half, really kind of a walk, don't run in case this drops to 14. I'm firing at 14 at that point. I'm not going to get greedy and wait for 13 and a half. If you can get a 14, even better. But Sideline says this should be at 22. We talk about it a lot. Maybe the key number we should be more worried about is 17. Maybe it's really 2021, that 20, and a half, 21 that would really matter. And 14 and a half is still a gift, even though would we feel better if it was 16 and a half? Oh, we're getting on the right side of 17. Well, we're still on the right side of 17. Who cares if we're on the right side of 14? Because this Old Dominion team is legit. It's a road game. But this Old Dominion team, top 50 according to Sideline, looks to be a game where they can go in there and make a statement against a Marshall team outside the top 100. Cousin Jared, you like a little Sunbelt action, so give us your insights.
yeah, I would say while I'm talking about this too, I would say could you find for me where Sideline ranks our boy? I'm gonna go with Joseph, the quarterback for Old Dominion. I would like to know what he is ranked according to Sideline. Old Dominion is the best group of six team that nobody's talking about. I mean, look at that balanced offense, defense inside the top 50. This is this year's Liberty. This is this year's. We had a few years where it was Louisiana. We had a few years where it was James Madison. I don't. They're not quite to that level that James Madison was when Kurt Signetti was there on the back end of his time. This Old Dominion team is really good. They beat Virginia Tech earlier this season, and everybody wanted to say, "Well, that's just because Virginia Tech was bad." And Virginia Tech is bad, but it's also Old Dominion's.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're going to be able to win the Sun Belt. There's a lot of really talented teams there, and so that's going to be the big problem. But according to Sideline right now, the second best group of five team, only behind Memphis. They are, according to Sideline, the best team in the Sun Belt, even better than James Madison and Colton Joseph. You mentioned grades out at a 111. That's the number 38th ranked quarterback.
Yeah.
Pretty strong for a group of five. Not the best
Yeah.
group of five. There's a few guys
Yeah.
higher than him. Of note, Blake Horvath having a strong season again for Navy, and Drew Mestamaker, of course, from North Texas. You know, strong Old
Yep.
Dominion team for sure.
Yep. Yep.
We've also got UAB at Florida Atlantic, 6 p.m. Eastern. UAB, wow, what a dreadful performance that was last
Yeah.
week. And there should be a lot of points in this game. And so that would be your argument for watching it, because there will be points.
Mhm.
But with regards to quality of football, this is going to be ugly. The defenses aren't good. The offense is not much better. There's going to be points because of the pace, but sometimes you just go quickly nowhere. Because Jared, maybe that's what'll happen here. We're going to go under 70 and a half as the model thinks 68. To have these offenses at a total in the 70s has to imply some level of competency that I'm not sure they can provide. Because
Yeah.
Jared, what's your thought?
Yeah. Specifically with Florida Atlantic, I think Zach Kitley is the head coach there of air raid fame, was at Western Kentucky, was then at Texas Tech. And, the pace numbers prove that out. Plays like you would expect somebody from the air raid tree to play, but it has just not translated to a lot of points so far this season. Certainly, this is the best opportunity that they have had to get a game into the 70s or the low 80s. Like it seems like both of these teams want to do, but Florida Atlantic has just not been able to get there so far this season. So I think this is one of those things where usually, Sideline, says that you need to, Sideline tries to take the pace into consideration and all of those things. And I just think that Sideline's a little bit inflated on Florida Atlantic right now because of just how inefficient their offense is. So I think your comment about the ineptitude was right. 38-31 feels about right for this game. So let's get it to 69 points, nice 69 points, and we'll get a win.
And I think, just to follow up, because you talked about Florida Atlantic, and I'll talk about the UAB side real quick to wrap us up. They're a team with a terrible defense and a fast pace. And terrible defense and fast pace typically means you're getting into the 70s. And yes, that happened against Tennessee, but Tennessee is a very different animal.
Yeah.
Against Akron, who is probably relatively similar with regard to talent as Florida Atlantic, obviously a little bit worse, but it's not, again, we're compared to Tennessee here, right? That game got to 59. Against Army, that game got to 44. And it's like a defense this bad at this pace, if they've got competent offense, is getting all these games into the 70s. Doesn't matter who you're playing.
Right. Right.
And they're not even really sniffing it in most of these situations because of the fact that they just don't have that level of offense as well. So I think from both teams, it's like there's just like you said, a little bit of an attitude of both sides that they both want to play games like this. They're just not able to do it. Their
Yeah.
defense is
Not
bad,
good.
but it's just
Yeah.
not good. Yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes you need some level of skill in order to do these games. So obviously we talk about there's ways every game can lose, every pick can lose, turnovers at the wrong spot. If these teams just hit fire on fourth down, right? Special teams type stuff, anything can happen, of course. But in general, this game would be more likely to land in the 50s or 60s than into the 70s or 80s. And it can still land at 70 and we still can hold on to that win. And so under 7.5 be great for us. They're kind of the flip of that here. Iowa and Wisconsin, a game that will have absolutely zero pace, will be more competitive with regards to the caliber and quality of football, but it might be more entertaining to watch paint dry than watch these two teams and their pace play. Only Minnesota's over there say, hey, what about us with regards to how slow can you play? This Iowa team, I still think they're solid. I'm not sure they're as good as some of the Iowa teams in the past. We're still kind of waiting for that breakout game from Gronowski, who was supposed to kind of lead Iowa's offense into a new level. Hasn't quite happened yet. Really, to me, this is more about Wisconsin than Iowa. I still think Iowa's decent, and I still just don't think Wisconsin's very good. I'd rather lay 3, especially in a rivalry game. If this is a walk, don't run. If you can get 3, absolutely don't lay crazy odds for it. But in general, I'm just not sure this Wisconsin team's very good. And it wouldn't shock me if Iowa wins this game, something like 27-14, and Wisconsin's just never in it because they just don't seem in it at all this year. I don't know what your take is.
Yep. Yeah. You can't out Iowa. And especially, ironically, Wisconsin is one of the only teams that can usually has a chance to out Iowa, but not this Wisconsin team. Like even on the road, playing at Wisconsin, man, this Wisconsin team is just not good. I don't know if Billy Edwards is going to play again this season. They kind of had some hopes on him. He transferred in from Maryland to Wisconsin, got hurt in the first game of the season, hasn't played yet. He's been listed as questionable, but he hasn't come back. Starting to feel very Cam Rising to me at this point, that he's just going to be questionable every week, but maybe not ever get back out there. And I mean, with the way Wisconsin's season's going, I mean, could he potentially redshirt and play again another season? I don't know if he has any eligibility left. Yeah, it's not good vibes at Wisconsin. They're not built to beat Iowa. They're not going to out Iowa.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams in the Big 12 that tried to do that. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, kind of in that same realm. And when they all are of similar caliber, turn into a lot of close games, and you would say never lay the 3.5 in a game like that because this was going to be a field goal game. But I just don't think Wisconsin is there this year.
Nope.
They just don't look good.
Nope.
So very concerned about them. Like you said, bad vibes, and obviously tough when you have a team like Alabama on your schedule and just add an extra out of conference loss, because at this point you have to worry about their bowl prospects, because it's not like it gets any easier with next week Ohio State on deck. And so if they don't win this one, that puts them already at 5 losses on the season, and wouldn't even be to the middle of October yet. So a lot of concerns there in Wisconsin, and maybe this is the week for Iowa to kind of reassert their defensive dominance. They haven't quite done that in the last couple of years. They've been a little bit more. Last year they had that running game that got going. This year the defense has been not quite up to standard, but against this Wisconsin offense, this might be time to have a single-digit output for the opposing team and really assert their dominance again.
Yep.
Folks, that takes us to our After Dark segment. 3 games to cover here. One of them, 9:45 p.m. Eastern, New Mexico, Boise State. We're going to take the 16.5 with New Mexico. I'm not going to say a walk, don't run, because I'm not sure the 17, if it happens, is overly big. Obviously, if you can get a 17 or an 18, great. I think 14 is the key number here that we're happy to be a part of. 13.5. Sideline says Boise wins this by an average of 11. Boise's good, like they always are, but they're not great like they sometimes are. This New Mexico team, good enough to hang in there with them. With an offense that can hang in, the defense is going to be a problem for New Mexico, and that's going to be their bugaboo here. But should be able to do enough offensively to hang around and keep the cover for us here in some late night Mountain West action. Because Jared, tell us more.
Yeah, you said that Boise State is okay. They looked better against App State for sure. They did not look good that first game of the season against South Florida. They gave up 1 billion points to Air Force. It turns out that might be about Air Force's quarterback potentially, or that being a big impact. I actually think that was the first game he played, so I don't even think Boise knew who was starting. That game definitely didn't prepare for the Air Force quarterback that actually played. For me, I just think that you see New Mexico's offense there pretty good. And I would say an equal to Boise State's defense. I think for me, this just reeks of backdoor cover opportunities. I think that Boise's going to could be up like 3 touchdowns with 10 minutes left, and then New Mexico gets multiple cracks at covering this one. The New Mexico money line didn't work out for us last weekend, but I think taking all these points with a team that I think is well coached and not going to give up, especially against a team like Boise, lots of backdoor opportunities here.
That's why I think I land on the same spot. I preached all along, Boise not as bad as that 34-7 result against South Florida. And they outgained South Florida. They ended up being put in a position where they had to go for like 7 fourth downs, and they just didn't get any of them, it seems like. And so, yeah, they're definitely better than that. But, when you look at them on the whole, they're just okay. Their defense, I know that, yes, it was the new quarterback for Air Force. He's looked really good, but it's still to give up 37 points when the defense is supposed to be your calling card is a little bit of a concern. And like you said, yeah, they looked better against App State. They mad against Notre Dame. I mean, that's a tough game. It's nothing against Boise. They're not as bad as that first game. They're not great. They're just a good team. And so to me, like you said, this comes down to New Mexico, the backdoor opportunity. But even though they couldn't get the job done for us at San Jose State last week, they got down early on a couple of really weird plays. It almost got their way out of that hole, only lost by a touchdown. And obviously losing by a touchdown here would be a welcome result for us. We'd be thrilled with that. But when you look at what they've done over the course of the season, that first game at Michigan, they put up 17 points. I mean, I think they're decent enough. I don't think they're good necessarily, but for a Mountain West team, they're very solid. We talked about it last week. They let us down a little bit last week, but again, I didn't see that and watch that game, see how that unfolded. And I wasn't watching that saying, oh, we made a terrible pick. They're just outclassed. It was like, just a couple things didn't go our way. I think our read on this New Mexico team is still pretty good. They're still decent enough. And the old Boise's, some of those teams could have gone out and won this game by 20. The old New Mexico's would have gone out and lost this game by 20.
Yeah.
This is neither one of those. And so I think they got a
Yeah.
real good shot to hang in there. Again, keep it close enough, or like you said, the back door's wide open. As long as you're north of 14, I think makes a lot of sense. A-grade play from us there. 10:30 p.m. Eastern, San Diego State at Nevada. We laid it with San Diego State last week. Turned out to be an excellent decision. We're going to lay it again with them this week, laying 7. B-grade play, as the model says. They win by an average of 10 or 11, on the cusp of an A grade. If you get 6.5, because that is an A grade. Nevada, still not that great. They've had times where they've been one of the worst teams in college football, a bottom 10 team outside of the bottom 10 now, but we think the San Diego State team is back to being pretty decent. Maybe not, some of their best years, but decent enough, again, for Mountain West standards at number 70 overall. We're going to lay it with them on the road. What's your take?
It seems like the San Diego State team is just getting better every week. It's like they're definitely building something out there. The offense, number 78 for San Diego State, sign me up. A welcome sight to see them have an offense rated in the ranked in the 70s. You might say to yourself, well, Nevada just played a close game with Fresno State. Should I be worried? And I would say no. Fresno State did nothing in the second half of that game. We had the over 45. If you would have told me that Nevada would have had 17 points, I would have said we win this total easily. And Fresno State had 20 points at halftime, and by golly, they ended that game with 20 points. They scored absolutely nothing in the second half of that game. So yeah, Nevada covered that game, but it was not because of necessarily what they did. It was because Fresno State could not get out of their own way. From what I have seen so far with San Diego State and kind of how they have progressed throughout the season, I like San Diego State. I mean, I feel like that's a perfect encapsulation of San Diego State. They have done a great job this season of staying out of their own way. They don't make terrible mistakes. They let the other team beat themselves up like Cal did. Cal had a bunch of turnovers in that game that San Diego State ended up shutting them out. So San Diego State is just a solid team, and I think they go on the road and just have a solid win over Nevada.
We've got one more Mountain West game. I do want to mention that I forgot to mention this in the previous game. I do think it matters that New Mexico, again, at altitude, playing at Boise State, a little bit of altitude there as well. So that Boise State home edge, if there's any altitude edge there, probably not going to be a factor. So that matters here. Something to always consider Mountain West. Even half the teams are at altitude and the other half aren't. And so this is one where we are seeing a team not at altitude traveling to altitude in Nevada. That, of course, is built into the model. So we have considered that. And so that is being accounted for. We still think San Diego State, the much better team, should be able to go in there and get an easy win, kind of like Fresno was on track to do, and then just decided to stop playing football. So San Diego State, please continue to play in the second half, unlike what Fresno did last week. But of course, it would not be a true college football Pitch with the Professor episode if we did not cover the Island Special, Utah State at Hawaii. Cousin Jared, we've been on this Hawaii unders all season. And that's why I like going over here. Two reasons. Number one, key numbers in the upper 50s, 58 and 59. We get to push on one, win on the other. Model says 61, the most likely outcome. Love the key number. Also love the fact, though, again, we have been harping all season, this Hawaii team does not play fast. They don't have a good offense. Their defense is better than their offense, and the market hasn't realized it. Let's go under. And then I see what happened against Air Force in a game that there were 80 points in. And I went, well, that's interesting. And then I look at Utah State and I go, yeah, Utah State's able to take teams that aren't wanting to play fast, aren't high scoring teams. And that's what happens. That's what happened with Hawaii and Air Force. If it happened with Hawaii and Air Force, why isn't it going to happen with Hawaii and Utah State? They play insanely fast. Number one there, according to Sideline, better offense than defense. This is all about Utah State and not about Hawaii, because if it was just about Hawaii, we would be on the under. But as it is with Utah State, I think they can do enough to get Hawaii into a higher scoring game. Hawaii probably wants to do that given their coach. They just haven't been doing it. But against Utah State, that's what Utah State gets teams to do. And so we're going to go over 58 B grade play. Cousin Jared, can we wrap up with a late night winner and just get us to 60 is all we're asking for in this one.
Yeah, that I would love that. One thing I would say is Utah State, Bryson Barnes is questionable. And what I would say is, spending time trying to update these rosters, half of the teams, more than half the teams, completely useless. Bronco Mendenhall, not. One of the most open and transparent as far as injuries goes. I don't think this will be a situation where you'll be going down to game time not knowing whether or not he's playing. I think he will know. If he plays, I think that this total is only going to go up. So I would say grab it now. The fact that we have him as questionable, I think this is the floor on what Sideline has since we have him listed as questionable. The other thing I would point out there is look at the pace for Utah State. That tracks with what I have seen so far this season. So I just want to throw that out there. Barnes is questionable, but we've taken that into account here. I think it's only going to go up if he actually plays, and I don't think you'll have to wait till game time to know. I think you will know fairly, I don't know, I'd say maybe Wednesday or Thursday. You'll probably know if he's playing.
A lot of factors in this one. Bryson Barnes, what I mean, talked about, if you pulled him out, the projected total would get closer to 58. So you'd be talking about more of a even expected value proposition than a plus expected value proposition. But again, from here, we're looking at it as the weighted probability of all options. And so this is either a good play or an average play. So it's a play you make. A little bit of wind potentially on the island, something you always have to consider. But at least as of now, this is Monday night, we're recording this. We aren't projecting 20, 30 mile an hour gusts. That's where it gets a little bit wonky. We're expecting more normal, slight breeze, 10, 15 mile an hour winds in the island. We typically see that all the time. It hasn't hurt their scoring in years past. Hawaii this year has been a team that hasn't scored no matter where they've played, again, except for when they came to the mainland and had that game against Air Force.
Air Force,
yeah. 79
like a gajillion points. Yeah.
Yes. But that's kind of what Air Force is doing to other people. But again, it's also what Utah State is doing to people. My last point on that, Utah State played the game with Vanderbilt here a couple of weeks ago in a game they got to 90 points. And I'm not saying that Diego Pavia not capable of playing in a game like that. But when you look at what Vanderbilt's done, Vanderbilt held South Carolina on the road. And obviously that was a game where Sellers got hurt, but held them to 7. They held Virginia Tech on the road to 20. They just played the game against Alabama, where game that, barring that last play at the very end, should have been 23-14. And so again, Vanderbilt more of a lower scoring team as well, a little bit more methodically drive down the field, pick up a lot of first downs with a mobile quarterback, with a dual threat quarterback, solid defense. Play against Utah State, they get 90 points. That's Utah State for you. And so that's, again, what this play is all about Utah State here, being able to do things like that, get teams in these crazy high-scoring games, and that's what we think will happen here. Even though we've been all on the Hawaii unders this year, we think it's a good time to flip. A lot of things to watch out for. Again, the quarterback status, the wind. 58 such a key number, though. I think go ahead and grab it now. If it ends up where it turns out the wind isn't that big of a factor. Barnes is playing. You can still get a number later in the week, maybe even add a half unit, but no reason not to at least lock in a little bit at the 58 right now. Cousin Jared, that's all of the official picks. We're going to have a little bit more to talk about, some extra A grades, maybe just a little fun chit chat about this college football season for our people over on Patreon. You can get more free picks over there. You can see our Discord chat where we get other picks, other insights, other stuff I drop from the model, and support the show. We really appreciate all your help and support. If you're over there and can sign up, only $4.99 a month. If you want just the picks, $9.99 a month. You can get just the picks, none of the other bells and whistles. If you want all the bells and whistles, everything, only $19.99 a month. So much value over there. Baseball playoffs still happening right now. College basketball just around the corner. Cousin Jared, what do you have to say before we head out?
I would just want to say, thank goodness we have 4 college football games kicking off after 8 o'clock Eastern time. I don't know what's been going on with the schedules. These Saturday nights have been brutal. I mean, you just expect me to come down off of high of watching college football all day and only have 2 games? I have to have a minimum of at least 3 games while I'm trying to come down from the rest of the day of college football. And at least we do have a good slate of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday games, especially Friday. Do a great job of filling up my Friday nights. Let's toss 1 or 2 of those into Saturday night, guys. I need something late night on Saturday.
Yeah, we had more after dark games last Friday than we did last Saturday, which was crazy. The Friday slates have been pretty strong. This is at least the first week we have multiple Thursday night games. We've been only having like 1 Thursday night game, and it's usually been garbage. But the fact that we've actually got a couple of Thursday games, one of them, I believe East Carolina and Tulane, I believe. A pretty decent game to watch Thursday. So maybe starting to get some better weeknight action, which is good.
I'm sure my family will be so happy that not only will I be watching football Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, but now I will
Wednesday
also
as well.
now I'll be seeing like, let me go turn it on the TV here, check the score real quick at these Wednesday night games.
Enough, we can get some Tuesday games too. We can get rolling with that. All right, folks, we again thank you for watching. We remind you, if you can, please like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate all of that. And folks, we say it all the time. I hadn't mentioned this episode, but again, our goal here and something you can do with the right mindset and the right model, folks, our aim here only to just make sure that we win more when we win than we lose when we lose. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.